Good. So welcome to the exploration into consciousness with the Earth Nouveau Hub. Good to have everyone here for our weekly chats. We're just gonna, on a weekly basis, we check in on each other, how we're doing, what can we share, what have we, appreciated, what has sort of, triggered us or not. And every week it's there's so much going on at the moment that we can talk, I think, forever, right? Good. But we just started talking about a beautiful experience Carolina had. So do you wanna share that again with us?
Yes. So I spent 3 weeks in Panama. This is the place where my mother and father chose to live 40 years ago. And I lived with them from the ages of 5 to 17. So in the last 3 weeks, I went back to the room that I slept in, to the house that I lived in, and I would experience time with the male and female who came together and brought me into this incarnation. After more or less 20 years of doing a lot of karmic resolution work in my family tree, in both trees, and it was a fantastic experience. It was truly, truly amazing to be able to come together and really honor everything they have given me, positive, negative, and to say, okay, thank you, Dad, and thank you, Mother, and now I take it from here. And to be able to say it to them and for them to receive it. It was just truly amazing to have the experience of witnessing my parents as people, just as people, with their likes, their dislikes, their challenges, their interests. The quirky way that they do their things with the eyes, with their voice, just really taking them all in. It was really beautiful time. And so I'm sharing this because I felt it in my heart when I was there in the last 3 weeks, that there were a lot of people that I am connected with that I might not necessarily know, that are going through something similar as I have. So I'm putting it out there to say, keep it up. It's possible. It is possible. It can be done. So in hopes that this reaches everyone who wants to experience that with their mother and father.
Fantastic.
Beautiful.
If you would have 3 tips or 1 tip to start off with, what would you consider most important or very important in order to get to that place where you can actually mutually contribute like that from this sacred neutral perspective, which is amazing?
So number 1 will be fire, working with the fire, just being very honest with recapitulation, going back as far as possible into what you remember, and bringing that all to the fire, for not just for one night, but I mean for a long period of time, like really connecting with the fire and establishing sacred alliance with the fire. Because I did it, my mother did it, my father did it. We'd never done it together in the same group, but we've all done it. And then number 2, establishing connection with the sun. Because really it was the fire and the sun that were the healers of us as a family. It was really the alliance that we established with them. I would not have been able to do this on my own. Even with all the human help that I had, I wouldn't have been able. And then the third one will be speaking directly to the Divine Mother and Divine Father, and making them the mother and father of my family tree. So I place them in my family tree as mom and dad. So we are all children of them. If my mother and father, biological mother and father, wish to be part of that new constellation. I think this will be the 3.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. I knew there was a reason I took a picture of the sun today.
Yes,
Yes, it is shining through.
Yeah.
No, you also, well, obviously, what you're saying is that your parents came onto the healing train and they've actually done some work by themselves. Do you think, Carolina, that without them having done that, would you still have been able to achieve what you've achieved in the last 3 weeks in Panama or
it
experience?
would have been different. It wouldn't have been joyous in the way that I wanted it. See, the thing about this past 3 weeks is that it was joyous and it was exactly what I wanted. And it's not always the case. It's not all, sometimes the people we love don't come along.
Yes.
But I would have been able to have my own experience. Yes, absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. Because it's independent from them
Yes.
to respect whatever choice they make. Mhm.
Yes. It reminds me of the journey that I've done with my parents, doing that healing journey. With the difference that they have not necessarily gone into that conscious healing journey. They've done it through, the illnesses and lots of other ways that change has been created. But that contribution, you said something before we even came on. You said to be able to share that with them was almost like payback time for bringing you onto this earth, right? Whatever, irrespective of what has gone down, in the early years or late. And I can totally relate to that, bringing my mum over to South Africa and later on my dad, and seeing the joy for them being in the water, in the ocean and everything. And that was a tremendous experience for me to be able to not allow that, but facilitate that.
Yes.
And I have been able to enjoy it on my own as well with my parents. I'm not sure I could probably do this with everyone. With my parents, I've managed to do that. With others, I still have to work on. But then again, the journey never stops, right?
Yes. Yes. There were times when we were all sitting in the living room and I will be speaking to my father and I will remember him from other moments. And it was fascinating. So there were moments where I was no longer speaking to who I thought he is, but other yeah, it's just
A different aspect of him. Yeah.
incredible. And I just went, and then I congratulate myself because I went with it. In the past, I had experienced glimpses of that and it would scare me.
Okay.
I would snap out of that.
Yeah.
I will not like allow myself to experience something like spooky or something. Yeah. And now this time it was like full presence being there. And I was like, whoa, a complete different person. It's still him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tanya, what is your experience with talking, especially you got so much experience with your clients, right? You're talking to one person, all of a sudden personality changes, almost like a different personality or speaks to you, right? How is
Yeah,
that?
definitely. I mean, I think, I mean, my work focuses also on bringing people's soul shards together into alignment. And when, I see this with my parents also, right? Seeing them through the space-time continuum, right? Of all of these different layers of all of the things that we are. I can be talking to a new client, for example, who comes in and as they're talking, I can see, some of the lifetimes that cause a certain type of programming. Like if someone's been a nun or a priest in a lot of different lifetimes, I might see that like a little flip book image as I'm talking to them. And they might not be talking as that former timeline self of them, but they're talking in ways where I can see the vows and agreements they made in those lifetimes and how they're affecting them in their life now. Like, for example, if someone is not in a relationship and wants to be, right? And they're talking to me and I see, oh, wait a minute, you've been a nun in like 10 different lifetimes and you've made all these vows and agreements of poverty and chastity. So, no wonder that you can't find a relationship, can't, connect with that, can't connect with, prosperity. Let's just release some vows. So, seeing something from that perspective. But also, I'm reflecting a lot. My parents moved farther away to San Diego. They used to live a 2-hour drive from me in the Central Valley, and now they live an 8-hour drive. So a little bit farther. It's been harder to see them the last 5 years. And my dad has declined in health since they've been down there. And it's interesting to sit with them now because, previously they were more vital. My mom still really is. She goes out and does all kinds of things, but my dad is having a much harder time getting around and wanting to do things, so it's almost like all of the work that, the healing work that he's done has sort of almost like been forgotten about in a way where it's like he was very expansive and now he's becoming kind of contracting into his own little world, which is interesting to me. So I think that poor health can do that. The inability to be really mobile can do that. It's almost like regressing to a state of childhood in a way, and as our family members get older, as we get older, it's almost like we need someone to care for us when we're children, and we need someone to care for us when we're really elderly. So, that sort of goes full circle.
Yeah.
So just holding space and being there and seeing them for who they are and loving them, unconditionally, from that sacred neutral perspective, I think it's helped me, right, understand how to be more caring and loving, but also how to be less judgmental, right? It's like I don't have to have an agenda for them. They're going to do what they're going to do. I don't mind. I love them anyway. And yeah, so understanding from that perspective, has been helpful. Like you can lead that horse to water, but you can't make him drink, right? I can talk to my dad about healing and I can work on him, but if he's not willing to accept it, if he's sort of like given up in a way, then I can't do anything. I just have to meet him where he is. But yeah, I understand also what you're saying, Carolina, about people who've been in your life who aren't on the same path or who aren't really doing the work, and how we're seeing that sort of separation of densities where, we're vibing higher and higher and, doing the work and people are falling out. I've seen this over the last 2 years really, really strongly, even just trying to have lunch with someone. We try to have lunch, they flake. Try to have lunch. Oh, I can't do it today. Try to have, lunch again, like cancel. It's like, okay, obviously we're not walking that same path right now. And that's okay.
And
Right.
that's okay.
So like not judging it and not saying, oh, why aren't we friends anymore? Why do you keep flaking? It's like, okay, well, it's just not energetically in alignment. Right. I can understand that. And I can step back and say, all right, well, after 3 times, I'm done. So if you want to connect with me, it's on you. Right. Yeah.
That's this
Yeah.
compassion journey, isn't it? I think we're all being almost like thrown onto this train. No, we jumped on the train, of course. We jumped on the train, and now, you know, what's coming up, certainly for me, is that really being catapulted into that compassion journey, you know, because it's like having the understanding of it all is very different to actually going through it, you know, and really experiencing it. And that's coming through a lot for me because, you know, when you live from a soul perspective for probably the majority of my life, I've lived from a soul perspective. I didn't even know any other perspective, to be honest. That's why I never questioned it or looked into, you know, what does this look like versus the other. And then all of a sudden, you know, you're right in it and you're starting to physically totally experience it. There's this old saying of just go with the feelings, drop into them, right? Just being in, it's almost more than being in allowance for me, because allowance was always, there was always this mental understanding for me, you know. Now it's like, no, just drop right into it. And what's come up, I don't know how you want to use the strings later on, Tanya, but for me there's this huge string: compassion and grief. This huge, that's coming through for me big time. Because compassion is something, you know, I've been starting over the years now to cultivate, but the grief one has never been so much of an issue for me, because I don't necessarily grieve, really, because, you know, you understand everything, and then, but it's this separation of density now is really sort of bringing that up. And not, it's not even that. I was looking at this yesterday, and I realized, I wrote this down, it's like grief is actually the purest form of compassion for myself. Because you know, it's not that I grieve so much for somebody else leaving, but there is, it's triggering a compassion for oneself. I don't know if you perceive that too, because it's almost like with everyone dissipating, is like, and our loved ones, and you know, and it's like the love that I have extended to others, I have to now give it to myself. Right? Because this is now the opportunity to have this compassion for oneself with everyone is leaving. Everything is, not just everyone, but everything. You know, the old, that whatever we've done, whatever we thought, it's all leaving. And I've never been, as I said, a big griefer, because I go straight into solution, but it's now, it's like, no, there's no solution to that. You know what the solution is? Solution is separation of density. Now feel it. And it brings up grief for me, interestingly. Yeah.
Grief was the catalyst to my awakening when I was about from the ages of maybe 12 to 17. I was not connected. I got disconnected. And when I was turning 18, my brother, my younger brother, 15, he left his body because of a brain tumor. And it was a very short illness. And he was the that experience was the catalyst for my awakening. And grief was the entry point for me. That was that really going into it. First avoiding it. I avoided it for years. And then going into the grief with my family, with my mother, with my father. That's really what has brought me here, how I reconnected with the mother. It was through my brother's sickness and his passing. So yeah, definitely. Grief is definitely a worthy doorway.
So it's a gateway. And it's a gateway to, you know, we're talking about the grief that we can, you know, that we've learned or experience here on this earth. But and I'm almost thinking, because I always look at, okay, what's the bigger picture here? What is this grief really? And it's the grief of how we used to live, our millions, thousands or millions, whatever, of lifetimes that we used to have, right? The grief, no longer having to have hardship, the challenges are changing, you know, everything is changing. And I think we're grieving for that too, right? For the structures that are disappearing, that have held us in some sort of safety, even if it was an illusion or something, you know, even the letting go of the fear that we keep talking about, because sometimes fear can be so comforting. It can be a facilitator to, you know, ask others for support or to actually not do something. Now you can't use fear anymore at a certain level of consciousness, right? It's almost like, oh, I have to grieve for that too. For all the emotions that we no longer really, we can still bring them up and say, okay, this is what it is, but it's no longer authentic, that, because the level of consciousness has changed, right? So we're not even getting away with that anymore. It's fascinating.
Yes.
Yeah, those things that were once so familiar that they gave comfort, even though they weren't great, right? I think of grief and how, yeah, what you said about grief is the doorway to compassion, right? That compassion we have to have for ourselves in that grieving process, right? To allow us to feel the feelings and just meet ourselves where we are, right? And acknowledge, right, all the things that are moving out of our lives, all the things that are shifting, things that we've perceived as, I don't know, good or bad or indifferent, you know, just that they're shifting and changing. And I don't know, last year I was introduced to the Ashiana, all the Ashiana Dean Guardian materials, and did a really deep dive on that. And just the way she talks about the way Earth is entangled in these lower dimensional realities. I mean, it just caused so much grieving for me to see what some of these, you know, dark anti-God beings have done to our beloved Gaia. And what a shock to to have a wider understanding of a bigger picture, right? That allowing me to grieve for, my perceptions and allow that shift to happen, which wasn't easy. And I think that's continual and continuing. When I mean, you two are not in the US, but the presidential debate was last night, and I didn't watch it. I'm not entangled with the political spectrum or sphere here, but so many people I know are. And I was like looking at the text string that was coming from my husband's family. We're on like a big group text. And it was hysterical the way they're commenting and the way, and just the way people are so polarized over it. It's like, don't you understand that this is, an illusion, that you're getting your energy harvested by being, all up in arms about this from either direction? And no, that people don't understand. And that's okay. So I have to have compassion for that, right? Being able to see that big picture and step back and still like not try to change how people are thinking or feeling, because it's like turning the Titanic.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's been an interesting past, year and a half,
Yeah.
of my own perceptual awareness.
And as you say, Tanya, you know, this being in allowance of other people and being the space holders and everything. And this is really something that's, as I said earlier on, that compassion for myself. Because as we're doing that, I started asking myself the question, how much do I honor myself by doing that?
Mm.
And how does that actually impact on my next level of consciousness evolution? And that's a question for some of us to be very honest about, because it's the next level of stepping away from empathy, stepping away from, or understanding compassion, what it really is, leading by example. And it's been interesting. I almost didn't go, but I did go to the Dr. Stephen Greer Serious Disclosure on Sunday. And I had absolutely no expectations, and I watched him a couple of times, and I was like, I'm not really interested in any of the disclosure or that kind of stuff, because, you know, I just want to work with them, with the beings, and that's it really. But I thought, look, he's here, so let's go. So I did go. I started off with, it was in a place, part of London that wasn't particularly grand, but apart from that, that doesn't matter. It was supposed to be a theater. And I thought, well, it was a theater. And I thought, how interesting, ET conference, alien conference in a theater, right? That's how it already started, in a weird sort of place in London, about 1,000 people in the auditorium, to be honest. And then he had some VIPs afterwards for very, you know, intrinsic conversations and stuff like that, because he did say, well, let me finish this first. So, and then it turns out it was a gospel church at the same time. So we had to wait until the gospel church finished their session. You know, we were all, and I'm like, what a weird combination, right? For an alien conference in a church that is a theater at the same time. I mean, the weirdest sort of place in London. And then I did want to go there. You could have done it, you know, via the Zoom as well. But I did want to go there because I thought, let me just get a sense of what kind of people are there, you know, maybe meet some interesting people. Of course, I didn't speak to anyone other than just the one person that sat next to me. And then the one actually who did come home with me on the bus. We had the same route. So when I got out, I thought, this was the most grounding experience I've had for a long time. And when I say grounding, for me, grounding means absolutely no emotion, no positive, no negative, just a knowingness. That's grounding for me. There were some people, there was this one guy, Greer himself, love him to bits, 69 years old, amazing guy, authentic as hell, vulnerable, cried about 4 times whilst he was talking. He's so passionate about what he's talking about. Yeah. Nothing conspiracy, because this guy's got 761 whistleblowers or something. So he's got it all documented. There is a website he's given us, dpiarchive.com, which I will put under the recording, where you can go in. Everything he's ever done in the last 30, 40 years, it's all there. All the different sites, all the secret places and things like that. Why I'm saying this, I can't remember now why I started telling the story, but that was so intriguing for me. Most normal people, no woohoo, no spirituality, no blah, blah, just people sitting there being genuinely interested in what this guy has to say. And of course, he's got a lot to say. It was a 3.5 hour session with half an hour break. And he did speak about the levels of consciousness as well, the way he has been getting to know them through, you know, working with ETs. One of the interesting things for me was what I have heard before, but he says 95% of abductions and UFOs are actually fake. They're man-made. And herein lies the problem, because they've started shooting down ET craft since the 50s. and using that amazingly powerful technology to now manipulate whatever they can manipulate, you know. Obviously we have free energy, as we know, that's all being manipulated. Science is manipulated. They're using those man-made crafts, which they have replicated. Basically, they're using them for drug travel, not, what do you call it, drug
Trafficking.
trafficking, human trafficking, weapon, you know, all of this. And this goes so far beyond what the president knows or our PM knows, Whitehall knows. Yeah, the majority of this is so deep, deep dark. Hi, Jenny. So dark that the majority of the governments, even on the higher levels, have actually no idea what really is going on. And part of the reason why he was here was really to get in touch with the UK government to start creating what he has created in the US, because obviously there is a lot of technology underneath, you know, not UK and obviously up Ireland, as we know, you know, all the way up into Scotland and everything. So now the interesting thing, and this is why, you know, I've been hearing about, you know, ET visits are being imminent, and obviously he's had contact with genuine ETs and met quite a few. And he says, and as again, that was one of the times when he started crying, he said it's just like the love that he's been perceiving through those beings is just incredible. And, you know, it's just so ridiculous, really. You know, we're saying we are afraid of them. In reality, they're afraid of us, because the technology that they're shooting down about two ET crafts a year, keeping, of course, if there are survivors, they keep them, they start experimenting on them, you know, in all the underground tunnels that are in all the deserts you can think of. I can't even remember now all of that, but that's all in the archive. And of course, using the technology. But now it's got to a stage where they become so dangerous, greedy, and God knows what else, obviously, that it's become a danger to not just us on this planet, but to the entire universal setup, all the species out there. And this is really why the visit is imminent, because they have to put a stop to that. We have to be able to recognize that this is not a joke. This is not a fairy tale, that they are in existence. And, you know, there are higher civilizations out there that want to bring us back. They want to help us to become that interstellar civilization that we are supposed to be, right? So galactic citizenship, what we talk about it, he says a different name. He says interstellar integration into the interstellar citizenship, into advance, to embrace the advanced higher civilizations, to work with them, mutually contribution. So that's what I took away. And it was super, super grounded. And you know, and he's obviously, I mean, he's been doing this, I don't know how many times they tried to take him out, and he keeps on coming back. And the majority of the people that work with him are volunteers. But you know what I loved about it, there's no sales pitch, there's no, yes, there's donation if you go on the website, of course, because that's how he works on donations. He works with, you know, people who are volunteering. It's, you got to have a passion for that to bring them all out, you know. So this is the lady. I'm just gonna let Sandrine in, and I'll be right back.
Hi, Jen. Welcome back.
Thank you. How is it? Good to see you, Tara.
Yeah, doing well. So yeah, it's interesting what Martina was talking about and the Stephen Greer. She was talking about the conference she went to with Stephen Greer. And you know, understanding too that there are beings who want to help us integrate, but there are also beings that don't. So, you know, I mean, using the discernment upon that is important.
I might have said something about it last week. But early last week, I was outside. I like to take a cup of tea. Sorry, there's activity outside my office door. I take a cup of tea outside around 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, like before bed, for Roscoe to run around and stuff like that. And I had taken a cup of tea outside to sit on my bench, and I looked outside, and there was a ship in the sky. And at first I thought it was a plane, but it wasn't moving like a plane does. And it was lighting up, going out, lighting up, going out, lighting up, going out. And just in talking to other people, I think that they've been making themselves seen more often. And maybe it's people at a certain level of awareness, but it seems like I've talked to a couple of people that don't have a particularly high level of awareness, as I would call it, that have been seeing things lately. And off topic, but did either of you notice that the moon wasn't where it was supposed to be last night?
It was foggy here, so I couldn't see it.
It was almost dead south last night, and it's never like that. I've never seen it in that position ever.
Jen, I can hear you, but there's a little bit of echo when you speak. Is that the case for you, Tanya?
Yeah.
My speaker. Is that better?
I think so.
My speaker was very.
Elaine!
Oh, hello.
Martina in the same room. Yay!
Let's see if we can do this properly. Yeah.
Hi,
Yeah.
Herminia.
Yeah, good. Hi, Jen. So what did you guys, girls talk about?
Well, I was
The
just saying
movie
that,
out of place.
yeah, talking about the fact that, yeah, there are a lot of ETs that are meant to help us transition, but there's some that are working against us. So using discernment around that and not falling into the trap. And then Jen was saying that she was seeing a ship the other night that was blinking, winking and blinking at her. And at first she thought it was a plane, but it wasn't.
What?
And I had that, that experience, I think, talking about people who are, at not the same level of awareness, right? But maybe those are beings that are helping them awaken. I mean, I remember having an experience in college where I was sitting out at night. I went to UW-Madison, and I lived right near a lake, and we were sitting at a park, my friend and I, across the street, sitting right on the lake on some swings and hanging out. And there may or may not have been some psychedelic drugs involved, but what happened was there was a big ship that came over the lake, and it just sat there. And it was doing that same thing. It had like a bank of lights that were just like blinking, chasing and blinking. And it was interesting. We watched that for a long time. And then I went home, and my cat looked at me, and his eyes got huge, and he's puffed up, and he just went meow. And I didn't realize it at the time, but it was like a wave of awakening for me. So maybe the ships that are showing up to people who have been living ordinary lives are meant to awaken them into their life path, their life purpose, that wider perspective of consciousness.
Well, I certainly feel that there is an effort on their side to speed it up a little bit, and also to come in to those that are willing or capable of resonating with, But, having heard that 95% are fake, we've got to really be careful what we're seeing. But if you have, and that was beautiful what you said, because you were saying you could actually perceive it, your cat could perceive it afterwards. So the more people seeing UFOs now, don't take for granted that all of them are actually real, I think that's something we need to really look at. And of course, that's going to really, I think, break a few perception when we hear about all those abductions, where they're real, where they're fake. I mean, what Greer was saying is that they're using, when I say black, let's call them the black governments or whatever, really, because the majority, as I said, of the governments has no idea that this is even going on. So they're using the impoverished people. They literally traffic the humans because they need, all these miles and miles of underground tunnels need to be administered. So lots of the people, they need huge amounts of slaves down there. They're being programmed because, frankly, the technology is there. It's so easy because the technology is all from the ships. So everything can be manufactured now. Everything can be manipulated energetically, electromagnetically, with scalar weapons and everything. So everything is out there. Everything's out there, and even like in the desert, San Alamo, I think he was talking about, it's huge. If you go onto that archive that I will send you, it's all there. I can't retain that kind of information, but he's just saying those entrances are cannot be seen because they're using holographic projections to cover them up, the entrances. So, and I think once people start to hear that, this is no longer about conspiracy. This is just matter of fact. It is what it is because it is the technology. It's like since the 60s, we have free energy.
That ties right into what I was saying when you were going to greet Sandrine. Last night I noticed that the moon was not where it was supposed to be. It was setting due south. Yeah, very, very lucky. I wish we were all there in person. Yes, we give a big hug.
See you later.
But yeah, the moon wasn't where it was supposed to be. And when I looked at it, I was like, that's not our moon. Like it felt really false light. And so I texted a friend of mine that speaks our language, that lives about a mile down the road from me. And I'm like, hey, have you noticed the moon? She's like, yeah, why is it in the south? And I'm like, I don't know. So it's like it's right in our face. And I don't know if that, it feels like it's a prelude to the eclipse that's going to be happening, what, Monday, Tuesday next week, something like that, the 17th?
17th, yeah. Tuesday.
Okay.
But that was my first thought walking out the door with my cup of tea last night, was the moon's not supposed to be there.
I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, but what kind of elusive manipulation is that?
I watch it every night, so it's not like I hadn't seen it in the month and it's changing its position for the seasons. Like it was completely in the wrong part of the sky.
Yeah, we were fogged in here last night.
Was it the moon though? Was
I
it
don't
the
think,
moon?
I mean, I used even my my Skyview Light app to see, like, I mean, it stayed in the same place for like 30 minutes, so we knew it wasn't a plane, right? But I used my Skyview Light app and it said it was the moon, and I'm like, So I just kind of acknowledged it and then sipped my tea, let Roscoe run around.
So yeah, and this is what we're dealing with here. And of course, final words from him were, raise your consciousness. That's all we can do. Yeah, unless you want to get involved with him and do some volunteering, and of course go to his CT5 ranches where he does the connection with the ETs or something. But his authentic presentation and his him getting so emotional, about 5 times he started crying, and it's just like, is it, who are you? But then again, he says, he used to be a meditation teacher, right, before he became a doctor, and he's got a couple of NDEs, and obviously half died last year or 2 years ago, whenever that was, when he had his bicycle accident. But he can levitate, he was saying these kind of things. So he was talking about the different levels of consciousness, you know, the cities, the Indian, I think there are 8 of them, but levitation and bilocation and all of that. This is all intrinsically within our technology. So the more we're starting to activate our technology, our DNA, by raising our consciousness, by letting go of the old, I think we need to add, what can we add? How do we raise our consciousness now in big words? So initially, yes, letting go of karmic resolution. That's number 1, doing the mastery, right? What do we have then? We've got integration, soul shard integration, right? What else? What did we just initially talked about?
Dissolving polarity and judgment.
Yeah.
Sacred neutral.
Sacred neutral, yeah. Separation of density. Because that works, yes. People just disappear now, but also we are disappearing, and it's causing that, just as a summary, that really us having to look into compassion and having to look into grief, because that's what's bringing this whole thing up. And then expanding that exploration of grief almost into the cosmic plane, because grieving for humanity, for the old way of how we used to be. Who did we lose? We just lost Herminia. Yeah. And then, like Tanya said initially, it's the perception is so big now, the compassion and the psychic abilities, that we are feeling the earth, even though we always know the earth doesn't need support and everything, you know, but we're still feeling what's going on. And like you said, Carolina, it's not just that we're feeling for the sun, we're feeling what every sentient being is going through on this planet, right?
Yeah. Tuning in, you know, when we tune into it, you know, but, you know, just that allowance that, you know, I am the earth and she is me, and I am the sun and the sun is me. And the hearts of both of those beings connect with my heart. There's a oneness there. But it's almost like having to do a body scrub, right? Where we're getting off all those, you know, layers and layers and layers that aren't of that oneness perception, right? There's so many beings, you know, that's just talking about the war for Earth right now, you know, and yeah, that there's a lot of people that are, you know, like you were saying, some people getting abducted to work in the tunnels, right? There's this agenda that's being pushed forward in the lower frequency realms. Now, I just finished that David Icke book, The Trap, and what I thought was really interesting was he talks about the third dimensional reality as a projection, right? And I mean, we all know that this is an illusion, right? In some way, shape, or form, that what's happening to our physical body isn't the whole picture. But the way that he talks about the way this projection or trap, you know, is projecting, like, what does he say? That a copy was made, and that copy is what the projection is. You know, very similar to the Matrix, and that we are at the mercy of the beings that are projecting that upon us, right? And I would say, you know, talking about like the dark agenda versus the light agenda, you know, maybe there's dark ETs that want us to be entangled in that way, you know, that want us to be controlled. And if we're not playing into their agenda, then we're having a hard time. I don't know. I just like really fascinating to look at it from that perspective and play with it a little bit, right? And look at Oh, well, I mean, I think really you could have any theory and be able to have supporting evidence and negating evidence of no matter what it is. So, just to be able to back up and really, to me, the most important thing is my direct connection to the radiant light of heart of creation and the radiant heart of Gaia, right? And then I'm somewhere in between, right, shining my light. But that allows for my direct connection to my intuition, my direct connection to my path and purpose. Yeah. And just talking about the threads and the way that we're all connected in that way, allow us to open into this journey together, but individual, but together.
Yeah. And you know what? That's the exciting bit now, is that yes, there are dark ETs out there as well, but because it's got so bad, the misuse of the technology, that it is now a problem for the entire universal, for all the species out there. And this is why it is so exciting now. If you ever wanted to connect with them, they are now here because they want to connect with us. And that's why I felt so grounded, and I felt so, okay, this is going to be imminent, for depending on our individual souls' journeys, coding and everything, tomorrow or next year or in 10 or 20 years, whatever, you know what I mean? But it's like, because it's become a pressing point now because of the abuse. So that's actually well, he says we're 100, we're about a century behind anyway, because of as soon as they started shooting them down and started this whole manipulation business, that's when we lost off all that time. So we could have already been enlightened. We could have already been levitating and all of that.
I'm actually utterly convinced that we could do that before the flood. Because of this whole black, well, not black, but this whole gap between the dinosaurs, Neanderthals, and then Göbekli Tepe. You see, so it's like what happened there, and then the flood happened. Okay, but before the flood, there is so little evidence of what has been going on. Have we been, did we go underground, and all that, and all this theoretical thinking and hypothesizing that is now coming again up and up. So I just finished, like you finished your book with von David Icke, and I finished the one from Metalink there from 1921, who's a French symbolist and mysticist and of the occult. And that book was a big revelation for me, because actually what he's speaking our language, but that was 1921. So all the occultists, Steiner and everyone there, the ones from Blavatsky and all those, they were speaking our language, because they were onto something that was at that moment, 100 years earlier, was again coming up, and it's coming up again and again and again, because they cannot keep it down, And what he was in a line also in the end, in his conclusions, also hinting at, I mean, it says we are copies, it says we are a matrix. He's just using 1921 languages for that, they were not talking about the matrix, but similar, it's a projection, it's not real, it's but there he was even more hinting at the fact that there are more amongst us already, some of them are not showing, some of them, so yes, these soul integrations or shard integrations, whatever, but that there are other shards who are not necessarily human, who are not necessarily, pastime humans, the passivity that we have all in us, that are also prevalent, but they also have a passivity then on this planet here, because it's the only one, or it's the only dimension where you can experience being in the flesh. And you have meat suits in a sense, so again, he does not use that language, but similar, to that. So that for me was utterly, and I just wrote out a few of the references that he was making, and I put them into Wikipedia, one or two of them were just like, again, somebody like Crawford or who were actually also working with ectoplasm, you know, something that has been completely put under the table, you know, swept on the wherever, you know, it's like, no, it's not, it's all nonsense, you know, and all that. So these are other emanations, you know, coming up.
And that's the bigger perspective, I think, that I want to ask, okay, let me ask the question first. But we talk about separation of density the whole time, right? We know what it means, disappearing, resonance, all that signature frequency. For what purpose? For what purpose is this happening right now?
I mean, we are at the brink of being too many people. So copying of the copying of the copying creates problems, right? We know that. There are things are getting lost or things are getting wrong. And I mean, I've just today I received a lot of news from Hanoi is completely flooded. Chengtung in Myanmar, where I was, even my house where I was living is not completely flooded, but well flooded. So they are dealing currently again with, you know, nature responding to something that is going on. Obviously it is because we are not using it in the right sense. And it's just, you know, the reaction of, you know, everything coming together again. So is it also something, because of the fact that we are too many currently, that something anyway needs to happen?
Okay, what else?
I don't know, when you ask the question, I just see oil and water separating, right? So it's a literal separation of densities. When you make yourself buoyant and light, you automatically float.
For what purpose? And that's the thing.
Just is.
Huh?
It just is. I don't know that it has to have purpose. I think it just is.
Okay, so when I asked the question for what purpose, for me is, you know, what's that word? Cleaning the chaff from the thing?
The
Chaff?
wheat from the chaff, yeah.
From the chaff, that kind of thing, without judgment, without bias or anything like that. Let's not think linearly, okay? Because when we talk separation of densities, we talk about a multitude of different Earths, you know, existing simultaneously anyway. Now, having discussed the ETs, separation of density, so we have now moved into a certain level of consciousness where we can now focus on other civilizations. So for me, the purpose of separation of density is purely for me to stop the distraction, stop all the distractions that I've had on this planet here, not without making it wrong or not loving it for what it is, but using it as a takeoff point to work with the interstellar civilization and to bring humanity into that place of interstellar perception and working with them, try all of these things. This for me, in my personal, because obviously that suits my soul coding, I would think, when I think of my passion around that. This is literally why I've come here. I've come here for that.
Yeah, personal purpose, not necessarily. I was thinking of like universal. That doesn't matter. But as you're talking, it does make me see like the Mandela effect in a different manner. Because when you think about like these lost artists and these lost and forgotten brothers and sisters, perhaps they reached that level just so far ahead of their time that they've been waiting for us there, for us to get to that.
Absolutely.
That level of consciousness. I'm sure it's intermixed like everything else, but I saw that in a different light as you were talking.
Yeah. No, that definitely. And that goes back to, if we carry on playing the ignorant humans, then the entire universe will be affected by it, other species as well, because, you know, the technology that is being used here and abused here is impacting on their technology. and doesn't allow that trans-dimensional travel and throws them all over the place. And literally, I mean, we are able now to shoot down ETs with scalar weapons, go beyond the speed of space, and God knows what the technicalities are, you know? So, and this is why I think you're absolutely right, Jen. They are reaching out to us. So it is a mutual contribution, you know? And this is an for me, it's like I'm super excited, because before I even started in 2014, went on to the journey with AB, that's what I always wanted to do. But of course, we had to go through the self-mastery and all that kind of thing. But we're coming full circle now. And whilst there is still, you know, learning about grief, compassion, and all this other stuff that will keep on coming up, we mustn't go back into the old box of the human.
Yeah, right.
We're
the
no
human
longer in
traits,
that box.
Mm.
And we are shapeshifters, like Carolina says. We can go and you know, perceive other people's consciousness and get exactly on the same level to communicate and everything. But having said that, why did we learn that in the first place? That's going to allow us now to communicate with other dimensional, you know, higher advanced civilization as well.
Yeah.
We had to learn it the hard way here. If we can now speak to our parents in a loving, you know, way, after so many years of working towards it, then we can do this with other species too, right?
Yes, yes. So the question is separation of densities for what purpose? So what's coming for me is as part of a process of divine justice that I am co-creating with the Divine Mother. And also for me to, at some point, have full access of really what has happened on Earth. I want to know what really has happened. It's in the making. And eventually, for me to forgive the unthinkable, what at this point seems impossible almost. You know, that resistance of full forgiveness, but at some point I want to be able to forgive it all. I mean, all.
That's an interesting point, forgiveness, yeah. It's not in my field, but hey, lots of
But
people
that's
need to forgive. The
part of
grief.
the grief as well.
Yeah. Interesting, yes. And then it's a perfect question. Is there anything for ourselves? Because it always starts with us, right? Who or what do we still need to forgive? For me, this is a slightly different energy to grief. So thanks for bringing that up. Forgiveness and grief is different energy for me. How do you feel about this, guys?
Definitely. Different.
Different.
Yeah, different, because grief is mostly sadness and loss. Well, I'm speaking for myself. Sadness and loss, and forgiveness can turn very quickly into fury and anger and resentment, and you know, more of those feelings than, I mean, grief is something, yeah, there is something that is gone, or you lost it, or it's not there anymore, and you're grieving for it. And it has more of a compassion to it, like it would be lovely to have that back, just for nostalgia, or for nostalgic reasons. But indeed, forgiveness, that can turn bitter very quickly if you don't, if you don't allow the compassion and the love to remain, in a sense.
Yes, and that is the new forgiveness that I'm going towards. The type of forgiveness that will forgive the human trafficking that is occurring.
So sorry, who was talking? Who wanted to say?
I was just gonna say that when I look at what Caro is saying is, you know, I look at it as coming almost to a close in what this paradigm has been, or this paradox has been. And there are egregious atrocities that people have done to each other, and that have been done to us as part of this experiment. And when I think about this one coming to a close, that forgiveness is somewhat universal on an individual basis, but to reset back to sacred neutrality so that we can all, like, I don't know, I just see like these billions of people as individual God sparks coming back into like the one, right? And before we all come back into that one, we have to let go of the density of what we've witnessed and what we've experienced and what we've seen. And so there is that forgiveness to release that, to come back to sacred neutrality so that we can come back into that oneness.
Mm.
I can see it as one, like millions of lights, billions of lights coming back into one, or I can see it just as that literal moment of reset.
Mm.
I mean, I think thinking of it like a game is easier,
Mhm.
because when you're playing a game with someone, well, I mean, maybe you care if you win or lose. I don't. You know, you can let it go, right? It's just a game. Oh, and that game of chess, you beat my pants off. Great. That was fun. You know, it was fun to have that interaction. So you can say, all right, everything you've done in this paradigm or paradox has been for, you know, for learning as a game. Then it's easier to come to that place of forgiveness.
Yeah. Carolina, you mentioned the Divine Mother. Yeah, when you talk about the Divine Mother, tell us what you mean with that.
Well, she is the very beginning, the present, and the forever. She birthed us all.
Mm-hmm.
For us to be having this exact conversation, and with the full knowing that at some point we could even forget her and turn against her, which some brothers and sisters have done. But it's so much love coming from her in her joyous expansion that she allowed us to do it all. So the Divine Mother is what it is within me. You know, I hold her. And I call her Aluna. That's the name that she has when I go deep within myself. Her name is Aluna, and it coincides with the name that my elders have for her, because I had forgotten my elders in this incarnation. And so that was a wonderful meeting of souls. I've received a lot of help from the indigenous elders in Colombia of remembrance of the Divine Mother.
Is that what some people call Sophia, the feminine, the Sophia consciousness?
Well, I am not very familiar with Sophia, although I've heard it. But for me, the Divine Mother is mother and father one.
Okay, I was going to ask, where's the dad? Yeah, okay.
She is him.
Okay, so that's going back to the monad, right? All the way back to source, yeah. And I love that, because I think that is really the level of play. We talk about game. This is the level of game, of play. We have to go beyond the fake moons, right? Beyond the fake suns, beyond the fake, snow globe, what some people call this, the illusion and everything. Go straight there.
Mhm.
That's that, as we're working on our plasma bodies, etheric bodies, this is where we're heading. We're heading towards that. And I was like, Sandrine was recommending a book, Vasily Kandinsky, the artist. And I've started reading it. And as you said, it's not that easy to read. But I've just written down what I read this morning, and he says music is the best teacher to art. Music is the best teacher to art, because music is not a product of natural phenomena, but the artist's soul expression. So why is music coming in and art coming in so much? Because it's inviting us to go beyond the natural phenomena that we have so held on to until now for grounding, because it can become it can become the limitation, the gravitational limitation, the soul focus. We've got anti-gravity, so we got to really put everything upside down now, and not taking away the beauty of nature and how we need it, but it is a natural force. Nature's just a hologram like everything else. It's a natural life force, like everything else. And God knows what is a hologram, what is not. Are the pyramids a hologram? I don't even want to go there anymore, because it's all fake anyway. They've changed the hieroglyphs, whatever you want to call it, you know, and that kind of thing. What is real and what is not? So I love what Carolina said. Let's go straight to Soul's mother. That includes male and female. And this is, you know, let's go beyond the natural phenomena. Let's become the artists without ever picking up a brush. Let's become the musicians without being able to even play a musical instrument, because it's going beyond all of that. It's going into the artists and the musician's soul expression. So we mustn't shy away from the non-material. We mustn't shy away from the non-physical. We mustn't shy away from what we're striving towards the abstract, the non-material. And I mean, I obviously love that because I can't paint for shit. I can't draw. I mean, I saw your amazing butterfly. I'm like, I couldn't do that. You know what I mean? I mean, I could if I wanted it, if I wanted to learn it and learn the steps. And no, I got to go abstract. I'm thinking, oh, what's wrong with me? And I'm like, I read this. I'm like, okay, I love that. You know, I find these things that work in my paper, so I can just say, okay, that's it. I'm done. I keep it abstract. But because that is imagination as well, right? This is imagination. We have to allow ourselves to imagine things that are not in nature, because we have to start imagining species that look very different, we've never ever seen before, without going crazy.
Which he also hints at later on. He also hints at, you know, the contemporary art. For some people that are doing art currently, and I mean, especially because he was, you know, one of the forerunners for abstract art, because he tried to find the okay, let's keep it simple, to find the message or the composition within, which is not a representation of anything, you see, so that maybe in future times, somebody finds that symbolism in it and it speaks to him, because, you know, this is the thing that he's talking about, contemporary.
Yeah.
So even if you're a contemporary artist, you're currently speaking this language on this moment, right? And you're interpreting it in a way that everybody around you understands it. Then later on, somebody will just, you know, in like 50 years, somebody will look at the Banksy thing and say, you know, what a stupid cartoon, whatever that is, you know. But maybe the whole abstract art thing is like coming up like, oh, interesting that they saw it that way, you know, because it might be coming up, you know, later on as something that is more valuable than, you know, the little vases and the little flowers.
Well, yes, and there's another thing that which spoke to me is he talks of the music as a duration. It's got a duration of time. So music is, you're going to listen to the whole song. There's a duration of time. Whereas when you have a painting, as a painter, you often, be this now, you know, one little dot, or be this now some abstract blah blah, it presents the whole content of its message in one piece. And that's the difference between the music and the, and I haven't really totally figured this out, what it exactly means, but I love it because he says at the end of the day, the new art that we are looking into is, because remember, I mean, every century has a different artist, a different sort of, you know, a presentation, different abstract, you know, all of that. But now we're bringing it all together. So there's a new art, a new music, everything new that's coming together. And we've seen this already, right? Some art pieces are just like, what is that, right? Or some music is completely not even kind to our ears because we're just not used to it. But the purpose of the separation of density for me is get on it, peeps, because we got to be those forerunners. And we have to be at the same time present in the moment here now. But by being present in the moment here now, we are creating that future, because everything, what we've been talking about like 20 years ago, you know, was already, or like you said, Steiner, Blavatsky, all of the theosophy, they were all 100, 150 years ahead of them. Now we are those people too. We are ahead. I mean, what's his face? Greer was saying like a conscious civilizations -1%, and I'm like, what? Really? No, we are already in the advanced one, but we are those bridges, those world bridges, those shapeshifters. We go back because we're all celestial mediums. That is the celestial medium journey. We're here to prepare the unseen world plus the seen world to create that new coming together of those interstellar civilizations. And I'm so glad for this word because I only was galactic citizenship, and I'm like, now I've got interstellar civilization. Not that it's fancy, but actually it's quite cool because it's got so much big space, right? We can throw so much into this one.
Well, I like that you use the term world bridger because today is the magnetic world bridger in
I
the
was just
galactic
going to ask
calendar. Yeah. And
Oh.
we're bridging worlds, bridging concepts, bridging, timelines, bringing together. I'm just going to read the galactic signature for today. I unify in order to equalize, attracting opportunity. I seal the store of death with a magnetic tone of purpose, and I'm guided by my own power doubled. And so death of old concepts, equalization, coming back to unity, and taking that as an opportunity are the key words for this 13-day cycle. That separation of densities, there is a death that happens, right? When people or concepts or things move out of your life, right? And as those lower frequency spiraling timelines are pulling those people away, and the higher frequency timeline is attracting, people who are moving through that raising of frequency together back into the oneness. Sure, there's always going to be people who want to play in the sandbox of separation. And there's those who don't. So just allowing for that.
Which leads me back to compassion. Not just for them, but for yourself too. The grieving, that's what I've been experiencing of late. The combo, grief being that, what did I say? Purest form of compassion for the self. Allowing the old you to dissolve.
Yeah, you see, this is where probably I'm not putting anyone or throwing anyone under the bus, but I still feel that his whole concept of the non-dualism has been misunderstood. I'm not saying that I understand it. I'm just saying that some of these concepts are actually where you need to go. It's like you need to let go. And yes, there is always dualism because that's how everything functions, because otherwise it can't, in relationship to yourself or not, there will always be, a dualism happening. But I think a lot that is also pointing at is this getting rid of, the letting go of this whole conceptual self that you build so hard together to understand. But actually we need to come to the grips that we are just this body and that we are just a conduit, with an individuality, yes, but then still coming into the oneness, you need to let go of all that. And again, here I just find the whole Odo figure of Deep Space Nine again just so absolutely fascinating, how they represented that in Hollywood. The guy, the one that can melt into his pot, and then once he is in the big ocean with his people, then he's like, whoa, I could never have imagined. But then he thrives on being, the individual, and then lets go of, well, but that's the storyline for Hollywood.
Well, I hear you, and I think, you know, we were saying we are world bridges, right? So we're building a bridge. Now, a bridge is not built in one day, right? And you need quite a few different building blocks in order to build a bridge from, let's say, A to B. Now, for me, what the way I look at this whole thing is the first part of the bridge was building the I am, fortifying the ego, understanding I am that I am, and I'm here to ground this whole experience, right? There's an intellectual understanding in that, there's the karmic resolution in that, and the beginning of all of that. Once we understand that we are the I am, we need an ego in order to actually do the job that we're supposed to be doing here, then what comes in is you. Then what you're saying is that different building blocks now. Now we got to say, okay, well, this is what we are. I am that. And now I got to actually let go of all of that, or at least I need to, you know, befriend myself with the idea that I am part of everyone. There's oneness. So I have to, like what's a lot of NDEs have this experience, that this pure sense of love, because all of a sudden they dissolve, they don't know who they are anymore, like lots of those non-dualists say, you know, and they just completely dissolve, and they have that sense of you know, they go into that Sophia or your mother, Alina, whatever, you know. But then, you know, they also realize, well, they can't stay there.
Yeah,
it's an experience to be had, but every NDE comes back and is the most normal person out there. Every dualist that actually started realizing what was doing, okay, now I have to build the rest of the bridge. So I got to come back. My consciousness has changed, but my physicality not necessarily that much. It might, you go maybe start, you know, getting younger eventually, you know, your organs, you know, all of that stuff eventually changes, but you got to build a bridge in order to get over there, right? So you still have to do action, you still have to use your hands, you used to have your legs and all of that. But so, and this is why everyone says, well, it's a consciousness evolution. That's it. So lots of people think, you know, there's nirvana and dissipate, and no, you're staying right here. You're building the fucking bridge. You're making, your hands are still dirty, boots on the ground. And just because you know what's out there, or in there rather, you still have to. And this is the journey. This is the bridge building.
Well, it's interesting because in the past year, I've had that visualization of almost like a bridge destroying, where the separation of densities, you know, as a healing activator, I was trying to get, you know, so many people across this bridge, right, to this place of awakening, that I was standing on both sides of the bridge, and the bridge was getting farther and farther apart. So here's me like doing the splits. At some point I had to say, okay, wait a minute, I need to be on this side of the bridge, right? And now that timeline is spiraling one way, and that separation of densities is happening. You know, there goes the chaff and more the wheat, or whatever you want to say. But this energy of, yeah, building a new bridge into these higher frequencies to allow this world bridging, interstellar intercommunication with people who want that, right? With you know, us as the individuals in the human body still in this polarity and density, but moving into those higher vibrational states where that oneness exists. And it's like, I don't know, the journey to oneness, right? But that other bridge is, you know, is not there anymore. You know, there's still people who are jumping the chasm, but the bridge isn't there.
And that's the nirvana, right? Is being able to feel the oneness and being able to be disentangled from the fear and the polarity in this realm, because when I'm at such a more peaceful state of being in my body, not in the ethers, but in my body, when I didn't even know there was a debate yesterday. Like I don't pay attention to any of those things. And so I'm not pulled around, I'm not cast into fear or despair about what's going on. I'm able to enjoy the sound of summer outside and the fall breeze that's starting to roll in, and the taste of peppermint tea, and being so very at peace and still and calm and connected. That's nirvana. That's the nirvana that comes with being on this side of the bridge.
Yes. Nice bridge. Martina,
Mhm.
you were saying that you wouldn't be able to draw Jen's butterfly. I saw the butterfly, and that you come to know that is your art is what is it called? ¿Cómo se dice when it's not perfectly shaped but abstract?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, last week I was in Panama, and I knew I was charging an offering, a pink horse, and I knew that it was to be delivered. I didn't know exactly when, and I had an urge to stop at a certain river. I continued charging as I walked there, and I knew where to deliver the offering. And as I delivered my offering, the horses, the way they landed on the water was Metatron. It was Metatron's sacred geometry, exactly it, on the
Wow.
water. And then fish came through the Metatron, and a bird came through and touched it and flew away.
Amazing.
Oh, wow.
And when I was younger, I always said that I couldn't do geometry.
Here you go.
And this was sacred geometry that everyone can do.
Yeah.
And
Never seen
and I had no idea it was going to be that. No idea. But what you were saying is go. You were saying earlier, go, do it.
Yeah, just and when you have to, I mean, there was no discussion about it. It just started and that's it, and as long as he goes, he goes. But talking about all these bridges, what actually reminds me of, and I think there's also setting color in motion, that's also something he used in that Kandinsky. It reminds me of the Rainbow Bridge, because that's what we're actually building. All our lives here on Earth, we're building that rainbow bridge back into the monad, into the feminine consciousness. That includes the masculine, back into source.
Think about Ashiana Dean's materials, and I was just watching a video where like a clip of one of her workshops was there, and they're talking about the solar activation cycle that was happening supposedly between 2000 and 2017, and that there are beings who are always trying to get the energy inserted to Earth at the beginning of the solar activation cycle, because that basically sets the tone for the whole procession of equinoxes through that solar activation cycle, which is what, 25,000 years. And she was also talking about how we're using the rainbow rays of light to sing the rainbow rays of light into the grid system that allow for Earth to continue her evolution, right? Singing those rainbow rays of light into the grids and into the Stargate system, which connects galactically, connects universally through higher dimensional reality to different planetary systems. And that all the wars on the planet are really based on trying to take over that stellar grid system of Earth. But I just, talking about the Rainbow Bridge, I was just seeing those rainbow rays of light and singing them into the grid system so that we can hold that higher frequency energy of love and compassion and like that oneness energy of being able to work with the heart of Gaia right, to help foster her desire. Like, what does she want as a soul, right? To nurture all of us beings, as we're working together. And so are we working with that, or are we working against it? I don't know. I mean, I think everybody's different, but just
Yeah. Well,
thinking
we
about that rainbow
all
bridge.
on some level, because we're here, so we have
Yeah.
to. I mean, and it's the most beautiful thing to do, really. Absolutely. And of course, then we have, those different colors of the soul. Every soul has different colors as well, which I don't know enough about, but yeah.
Well, and also the chakras and everything. I mean, they are also translated into different colors. But again, I mean, it's also the coming back to the co-creation of everything. I mean, and here again, even this week, I was like, why did I not continue my art journey? Because I just, I grieved about it and I let it go. But I know that it lives on in, because we are all co-creating, I know it lives on, I somewhere in a way, and maybe I'm going to pick it up again or not. I have no idea. But for the moment, I'm done with it. So I'm coming more and more to this perception that it's very good that we have, each other, because there is the oneness in a sense that, what I cannot do right now, somebody else is doing it, in a way, if you know it or not, and I can probably profit from it in a sense and benefit from it, whatever you are doing, because we are connected, right?
That's the expanded mirror exercise. We used to use the mirror. What does this person have that I still need to learn about, or or that I haven't embraced yet? That's the old version for karmic resolution. But now for dharmic creation of our dharma and collaboration, that's a beautiful way of looking at it. We have all these different people here doing all these lovely things, because they all complete us, but not in a way of, we can't survive without them, but we can acknowledge their contribution in this huge collaboration. And this is part of the purpose of, as far as I'm concerned, that density, because there's no point to have. No, I can't say that. You can have lots and lots of people in the same group, who do the same things, because everybody does it in their own unique way anyway, But in the beginning, as we are starting to build those groups and we're all getting on that same train, you'll see that everyone is super, super, super specific and unique in their contribution. And that's, I think, also separation of density, not just from people, but also that's why we're leaving so many things behind. I mean, we all used to be healers, right? Or we're still all healers. Yes, that is not being taken away, but I'm not really acting upon it anymore. I call myself an artist. Okay, great. Now we've got Tanya as a healer, and, because now we're just going more specific. We're going more into this. I mean, there's lots of purpose. There's not just one purpose. We know that, but I think we said that last time, that there are specific, very specific reasons why we've come here.
Yeah.
And you know what? There's another thing that's coming through quite a bit now with all the technology. Talk about technology, and we all know there's a lot of technology underneath. And that's now manipulated ET technology and everything, but there's a lot of Atlantean technology underneath our world that we have been custodian of, that we have been making sure that it didn't fall into. So it is a responsibility of us to make sure that that manipulation of that deep, deep black state, whatever you want to call it, has to stop. Because that technology that is now starting to get activated through our levels of consciousness can be used.
Nothing happens.
That if it's falling into the wrong hands, that is part of our, we are there to activate, because, think of all these people traveling all over the world. We feel drawn to go to certain places. What do you think you're doing there? Yes, you're having fun and you're learning lovely stuff, but every time you go there, you activate something. because your energy, your signature frequency resonates with something else, and bloop, technology because everything is technology with a consciousness drive, and that's what the ETs are having. They're having technology with the consciousness drive. I remember AB saying that consciousness drive. Even the Earth is a planet ship with a consciousness drive. So the technology that they are having and the technology that we are having, we are technology with a consciousness drive. The problem is now he was even saying, you know, a proper ET ship, not a bastardized one that's been replicated. Yeah, they have all the capacities, but they don't have the consciousness drive, right? Because a real ET craft can actually, if it's damaged, it can heal itself. Just like we can. Just like we can. And he's obviously a doctor, and he said he went to those underground places, God knows to which one now, and he's seen limbs being grown back and all of this, and people being not programmed but trained to do the cities, SIDDHIS, if you want to read up levitation, you know, remote viewing, all of that. This is, and you know what, I don't want it to piss me off, because it's like, oh, for God's sake, we've got all of this available to us.
We do.
Who wants to watch a fucking debate between, you know, Trump and
Well,
Harris? Even
where
those guys have no
that's the
fucking clue
distraction.
what's going on,
That's
right?
a distraction.
It's all a distraction. Good on you, Jen. Don't even bother.
Yeah.
We got to go straight to the source. And look, where do we go? We can't go straight back to the monad and maintain our I am, so that's fine. So we have to go out there to the ETs or to the transdimensionals. No longer for, oh, please help me, heal me. Yeah, that on the side as well, because I'm so conditioned. No, to co-create. It's time. What can we do together? How can we avoid that? That's not conspiracy anymore, as far as I'm concerned. I walked out there so grounded. Didn't hear anything new, really. It's just a reminder of, yeah, that's what it is, and that's what we've come here for, in whatever shape or form or contribution. So I'm not going to go and work with him, become a volunteer and bring it all out, because that's not my thing. But I walked away and I'm thinking, yeah, it's time. I got to connect. Got to stop this, oh, I can't connect, I can't see, I can't feel, I can't taste, I can't smell bullshit. Already been doing it forever, right? So it's time to just acknowledge that and then see whatever it looks like. Having said that, yesterday I painted an alien. I was, I paint faces all the time, but I used a twig this time. I thought, oh, let me use a different medium, just a twig, a very thin twig. I was like, okay, yeah. And I'm like, oh, you look different. You haven't spoken to me yet, but it's out in the studio. I'll show you later. You can tell me I'm just making shit up. But then again, that's what we are supposed to be doing. We're artists, right? Of life.
So yesterday I went for the PET scan.
Yes.
And coming to the hospital and to the waiting area before I got into the scanner area, there was signs already saying that there is a big magnet, just across that door. And I have to tell you, I was sitting there and I felt that bloody magnet, and I only felt it because it reminded me of how I felt when I was in Pumapunku, with the H blocks, because they are magnetized. And this slight, when you're holding magnets together, this tension that you create. And I'm like, okay, interesting. And then I just let it happen, I let it, I involve myself with it in a sense, so I'm here and I'm going to, and then I got radioactive sugar into me, and I was radioactive for the rest of the day.
Not
and
anymore.
my key was fine.
And this is the other thing. I think so much clicks into place when you just hear it. Would you have thought about it if you wouldn't have heard about the magnet? Did you hear it? Did you say you heard it? I'm making the shit up. I don't know. It's like when I went to this conference and I heard certain words that I don't normally use. All of a sudden it just, so this is the thing. I'm doing the Shopify website,
yes.
you know. So I'm writing out artist, blah blah about me, right? And you write it on a Word document and think, yeah, that's cool, that's great. So I upload it and I preview it. And as soon as I preview it, I'm like, oh God, no, I can't write this.
Why?
Well, the thing is, the way it looked on the Word document was different to what it looked like when I put it on the website. So what that made me realize is, and sometimes, I don't know if you heard that before, like you're sitting somewhere on your couch and you can't think or you can't this or that. Often people say, just change the room, sit in a different place, right? Because everything interacts with us. So the Word document interacts with that, and it seemed okay. As soon as I had the preview, it just didn't work for me anymore because it immediately changed because the environment had changed. It was now uploaded on Shopify. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so interesting, right? How this works. Now, what are the implications for us being in a certain place sometimes? Even if changing the room has a difference to your level of perception. So me going there, sitting there with Greer and all the people there, which were part of my, you know, within my separation of density, just sitting there, hearing one or two words cemented in a knowingness that I always knew I had. Was it worth it? Yeah, it was worth the trip. Could I say, I could have said, oh, I could have listened to this, obviously sitting exactly where I'm sitting now on the Zoom,
No,
right?
you needed to.
No.
We have
This is
this
the
habit.
thing. Colors in movement. We have to move. We have to do you know, we've done this before. There's a metaphors of movement is a therapy that I've learned. It's where you have an issue, you stand, you imagine where you're standing, and then you take a step forward. The representation completely changed. The picture in your mind changes. You take a step back. You take one to the side, to the left, to right. One of the most potent things I've ever learned. I had clients walk out on me just by asking them to step forward. They didn't like the picture. And it was totally detached from their actual problem. And it had such an impact on them that they told me to fuck off because, what are you doing? And it's got nothing to do with me. They never came back, but I can guarantee you, whatever we did then created such a difference because we have to move. We have to use our physicality. And I had to learn this the hard way because I'm super happy in my head. I'm super happy living on a soul level, but that's not what we've come here for. And the worst you can do is love people on a soul level. Yeah, it's not good. It's not enough. Yeah, you can appreciate their soul. You can do all of that. But if you're in love with a soul and the soul doesn't balance harmoniously with what you're having in front of you, you're going to have a problem eventually. So very interesting.
I love the kick in the butt that I'm receiving right now from Martina to move my ass. I know exactly, right? Yeah, it speaks to me really clearly about what I have to do.
I speak from serious experience because I have to kick myself daily. And I'm glad Chica is here because she's been kicking mine again, you know, because otherwise I'll just be like, oh, yeah. I can go off in my dreaming, la, imagination. I'm perfectly fucking happy with that. But no, it does not create action.
And
And
then
Well, and just being in that room with all of the people there at the same time, right, creates that interesting collective energy that then you can take away.
Which
Yeah.
we
and
have
go
also.
seed into different places in the world, like wherever you're walking, wherever you're having tea or coffee or a glass of wine. You know, you're bringing all of that energy with you.
I met a young man actually on the way back from that. He started talking to me, and I gave him our details. So maybe the webs are not working. He wasn't, but he said he might be coming on, because you know there are lots of people out there. Might not be 50 or 100 at one time, but might be just the one. Just
No,
like
that's okay.
you know, we
Yeah.
picked up Gigi, you know, in
Mhm.
Turkey and things like that. And also, God knows, I mean, we're doing this for ourselves, right? So if anyone wants to watch it, I think, guys, you should.
Just thinking about that sense of timelessness that's created by the abstract art, right? Like you were talking about before, when you look at a picture, you see the whole thing at
Mhm.
once. You
Yeah.
get the whole energy of it, and it creates, as opposed to the song that has the duration, creates a timelessness, almost like that one point in time where everything is occurring in that now space. And I feel like we're all getting more of that timelessness energy, right? I mean, following the calendar, following the galactic calendar, they're just different representations of time. And as we move into those higher dimensional realities, time isn't relevant.
It's not fun.
I like that, because also you can use a painting, and I think this is why paintings are being interpreted by so many different by people in so many different ways, because everyone hones into, you know, everything is happening in the moment right there. It's all an accumulation, but everyone hones into that one particular time shard or part, you know, and that's what they see there. And then the other one hones into a different time frame. It's a bit like, think of a picture, right? When you take a picture of yourself, you're freezing yourself. Every time you take a picture of yourself, you're actually creating a version of you. Every experience you have. And this is why we have all these doppelgangers, multiple doppelgangers. We've got to get rid of all these doppelgangers and just let go of them. Because every thought creates a version, every thought creates a timeline even. And think about that. Gosh. And we are able to hold it together. We are actually functioning with capacities like that and have no idea, because it is a natural organism, right? It's amazing. It's really, we are actually quite amazing. I think we should really end on this note. How amazing we are. What do you think?
Good.
Good.
We are
Any closing words? Oh, Jen, thanks for the
Thank
heart.
you.
Yes, do what you do, keep doing it. Because you're doing really, really well. Really enjoyed that chat. Thanks for coming on every week. We're back next week, as usual, 5 o'clock.
Thank you. Bye. Nice to see you faces.
Yes.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Arminia.
Arminia. Fantastic.
I'm driving, that's why I couldn't put the
Good
video.
stuff. But great to
Okay,
have you on.
Thank
Great
you.
to have
Bye-bye. Bye.
Love you.
All right.
Love
Okay,
y'all.
Thank you.
cheers,
Bye.
Have
hey.
fun, you too.
Oh,
We'll
thank
get
you.
into some
We will.
trouble.
Oh, we can't promise that. Come on.
Oh,
Can't
no.
wait to hear about it.
Bye.
Bye.